Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. Before we get into it, I had a couple issues with the audio in a couple of places, so I want to apologize for those audio clips. I also really fucked up the camera, so my mic is completely in front of my face the whole video. Oops. I'm still learning a lot and I won't make the same mistakes again. Thanks y'all, enjoy the video. Hey, we're talking about Dave.
I'm Lil Dicky. Hi, I'm Dave. Who's Dave? Hi, I'm Dave.
Dave is an FX original comedy starring Dave Bird, also known as Lil Dicky. Dave follows the story of Dave's journey into hip-hop and his journey of an artist, and let me just say, this show is absolutely batshit and I love it. When we first meet Dave, he's put out some of his songs on YouTube, but nothing else. He doesn't even have a record deal yet. We follow Dave and his friends over a couple years, and we get to see them grow and change and become better versions of themselves. Well, most characters. I remember trying to watch Dave a few years ago. It was shortly after season 1 had just come out, and I only made it 10 minutes into the first episode. I didn't like it, and I didn't laugh, so I stopped watching. But then, a few months ago, a coworker recommended it to me again, so I thought I'd give it another go. So I ended up watching the first 3 episodes with a buddy and a roommate, and I loved it this time around. Everyone was laughing like crazy. The show is filled with moments that make you go, what the fuck is going on?
You tucking a grown-ass man in, bro.
I started off watching season 1 in my living room and typically with my roommates, but I watched all of season 2 in my room by myself, and while I love this show, I would highly recommend you don't watch it with uptight people. My roommate was Mormon, and so when we started episode 4 together, things got uncomfy fast. 2 parts in particular made my roommate leave the room. First was the scene where we watched Dave fuck his sex doll, which is a common occurrence in the show. Dave's sex doll is a life-size pair of rubber legs with a fake pussy in between them. And while we never see his dick because it is TV, we do see his ass and they get as close to showing him fucking it as possible. Just a rear view of his ass while he pounds into the doll. I personally don't mind this kind of humor, but my roommate did, and you could feel how uncomfortable he was. Then later in the episode, Dave and his girlfriend end up making a milking table in their garage. For those of you who don't know, a milking table is just a table with a hole cut out of it. Then, the penis-laden individual lays on top with their penis sticking through the hole, and then their partner milks them. Needless to say, my roommate left the room for that part as well. Stuff like this becomes more and more frequent throughout the show, so I would highly recommend you watch the show with chill people. Once I started watching the show by myself again, I started to enjoy it to an immense degree like I had with the first 3 episodes. And I also started to realize something. This show is not only funny as hell, but the writing is really good. I loved the character writing, and I loved the approach the show took with character development. Dave is very clearly a narcissist, like Kanye West levels. And I fucking hate him so much all the time. Dave does so many shitty things all the time and never cares and rarely grows. Over the 2 seasons, Dave is always the same. He is self-centered, an absolute ass to everyone, and never apologizes. We see fake moments of character development in Dave, like during season 1. Dave and his crew are trying to rehearse for a show, and Dave's hype man, Gata, is completely out of it. Everyone is freaking the fuck out about it and gets super pissed at him for wasting super expensive studio time. Gata ends up telling them that he's bipolar, and the tone of the scene instantly changes from super abusive and mean to supportive and caring from everyone in the room. But that's not character growth. That's just a moment of decency. Throughout the show, Dave remains the same narcissist. You really don't see much growth in Dave. But I think this is completely on purpose, and it serves the show really well. Dave is a star of every episode. We follow his story all the time, but despite that, we still manage to see all the characters grow and change in a lot of small moments on the side, and I love it. My favorite example of this is the character Gata. Dave meets Gata at the start of episode 1. They're both hanging out at the studio, and Gata recognizes Dave, and they start chatting it up and become friends. Eventually, Dave hires Gata as his hype man, and their friendship grows. During season 2, though, we watch Gata pursue his own music and creative goals, but it's in really subtle ways. We don't get any explicit scenes about Gata going to the studio and working with a producer, or any scenes of Gata actively working on it in any way. The first moment we see is super easy to miss. In one episode, we see Gata head over to an audition for a rap competition. But the audition turns out to be a trap set up by 2 TikTok pranksters that Dave's manager has started to manage recently. They're in costume and have Gata freestyle on camera for them, and Gata bombs hard.
My guy Gluten just got out. He free.
They end up ripping off their masks and laughing at him hysterically. Gaeta loses his shit and breaks some shit and then leaves. But when he checks his gram, he starts gaining followers from the prank. Dave doesn't address this for a few episodes. The next moment we see Gaeta's journey is a few episodes later. Dave and Mike are listening to Gaeta's newest track. We hear maybe 20 seconds of it. Dave brushes it off though, even though that shit slaps, and the show moves on again. Then a few episodes later, Dave gets kicked out of a bar mitzvah. The kid who the bar mitzvah was for is a big Little Dicky fan, so his dad hired him to come hang out. Well, the kid's dad wasn't too happy when he heard what Little Dicky was saying to his son.
Speaking of shit, have you ever shit on each other's shit?
He is furious that Little Dicky is being such a bad influence on his son, so he kicks his ass out. Gaeta was supposed to be there as well, but he got his car towed the night before. Gaeta pulls up a few minutes after Little Dicky gets kicked out, and the kid recognizes Gaeta and is hysterical. He tells Gaeta what happened, so he decides to show the kid his new song. He starts blasting it from his car and performs along with it on the roof of his car, and all the kids and guests gather around, and the episode ends. So over the course of an entire season, we watch Gaeta grow as an artist and grow his following, but it's over 3 or 4 30-second scenes. I think it's really cool how the show can completely focus on Little Dicky 90% of the time, but still grow all the side characters in really subtle ways and in short scenes. We get to see Mike grow his client base and take charge as manager, and we get to see Els grow out of Little Dicky and become a more true artist. I actually like that we miss so much of their stories. It's what Dave would actually experience. We don't get to see Gaeta working on his music because Dave never helped or showed any interest, so we never get to see him working on his music. The show is called Dave after all, so all we care about is what Dave cares about, and that just happens to be himself. Even when I gave Dave a second chance, I was not expecting the quality of the writing. My honest expectation was that Dave was going to be a lot like South Park, filled with plenty of dick jokes and absurd humor, but really nothing more. I do like South Park, so that kind of experience isn't exactly something I'm opposed to. The thing is, Dave is just something completely different. Dave has plenty of dick jokes.
The first time I ever jerked off, I used my own thoughts.
And plenty of absurd humor, but the show is also filled with really strong scenes. Once the show gets rolling, a lot of episodes can be surprisingly intense. The first one that really caught me off guard was when Little Dicky,
some good shit in Korea.
Season 2, Episode 1, Dave goes to Korea. Dave is working on his album and thinks that K-pop is the way to go, so Dave and crew head over to South Korea and film a music video with a major K-pop star. Gaeta, of course, is a major gamer and brings some weed, and that shit is way illegal in South Korea. On top of that, they also managed to lose Dave's laptop, which has all of his music for his album on it. The crew ends up having to go all the way through South Korea, trying to get the laptop back while also not getting arrested for their weed. This causes a lot of really intense scenes throughout the episode that are really, really well done. Season 2, Episode 4 was another notable episode. It had one part in particular that made me so uncomfortable I almost paused the show. Dave gets interviewed by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and after a fairly reflective episode, some problems and fighting ensue that accumulates in a very intense scene. Kareem ends up getting stuck in the bathroom, and he's extremely claustrophobic and a very tall man. On top of that, there's also a lot of fighting going on in the living room, and the yelling just freaks Kareem out even more. He ends up losing his shit and kicking the door so much his leg breaks, and it's gross and really good. The scene had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I was extremely uncomfortable. It was really, really good. The balance the show is able to keep between comedy and tone is really impressive. A lot of episodes have intense or uncomfortable scenes, but maintain comedy throughout. The show, of course, tones it back when needed and plays it up when it best suits the show. I also want to make it clear that these intense and uncomfortable scenes aren't unenjoyable. They bring a lot of value and weight to the show, and they are the moments I remember the best. Some of them are uncomfortable because of awkward humor or extremely graphic humor. Others are uncomfortable because of the well-acted and intense arguments some episodes have. I was really impressed with the show's ability to insert these powerful scenes while maintaining a consistent tone throughout the show. The scene where Dave shoves gum up Benny's ass doesn't feel out of place, and neither does the scene where everyone supports Gaeta after finding out about his bipolar disorder. I think one of my favorite things about Dave is the exploration of writer's block in Season 2. Throughout Season 2 of Dave is faced with writer's block. He has all of these resources at his fingertips, but can't seem to make anything. He's got a deal at the label, is given a multi-million-dollar home to stay in while he works, and a world-class producer to work with. Yet he's stuck. I really like this storyline because I feel like it's a part of music that isn't really explored. Most of the stories you hear are of the moments when inspiration struck, or stories like season 1 of Dave, where an artist is trying to pursue that record deal. It's rare that we see a story focus on an artist facing writer's block this severe, and I really like the exploration of the topic. I really love music, and I try to write and create my own all the time, but I've been really stuck on finding my voice and figuring out what kind of music suits me. The feeling I get when I stare at the production software for 30 minutes without placing a single note is translated really well into the show. For me, it's like I'm stuck. I know I want to create music and I want to create something good, but for some reason, whenever I try, my brain freezes. Dave represents this anxiety really well, and it was refreshing to see someone else also have that struggle when it comes to creative endeavors. I enjoyed watching Dave push through that barrier and wake up to himself. I was super glad Dave explored this common struggle with creating. Overall, I really enjoyed Dave. It was engaging to watch while also being extremely funny.
Oh yeah, I'm listening, bro. You know me. I'm just fucking with some bitches.
Alright.
I highly recommend you give Dave a watch. Season 2 of Dave finished airing in mid-2021, and it ended with this fantastic finale that really caught me off guard. I'm really looking forward to what fuckery this show has in store for us in the future. Not only is it very funny, but it also has great characters, great stories, and great performances. I kept the spoilers pretty light for a reason, so go enjoy it! Thanks y'all for tuning into this week's video on Dave. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know what? I hope you'd subscribe, damn it! This is my second video, so if you want to be cool in a couple years when the channel's big, you better sub now. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.